Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 411 of the Health Detective Podcast. I'm coming back to life here. I don't think I got to mention this on our most recent podcast, which was just a couple of days ago, but if you guys saw a little bit of a gap in our schedule, yes, health detectives, FDNs, unfortunately, we do still get sick, especially when we're traveling around to different conferences and staying up way later than we probably should be. So I don't know if any of you guys have dealt with this over the last couple of months. There is a nasty little bug going around, and I feel like I'm finally coming on the other end of this. Unfortunately, my wife just got it last week, and she's a trooper. She's someone who usually... As I say, I'm kind of overcoming it, right? She is usually someone who can overcome things like that, and she's kind of down for the count right now. So it's good to be healthy as an FDN, but yes, that does not prevent you from random viral illnesses, unfortunately. So it feels great to be back with you guys. We have a full circle podcast guest today. And the reason I say that is because she is someone who listened to the podcast before going through the course, graduated as an FDN, and then actually works with us here at FDN. So we'll get into all of that today. One thing I want to shout out first, though, is if you guys were a part of our Holistic Health Week, I know we got many new subscribers in the month of, I believe that was March. Yes, everything is going very fast right now, but it was March when we did Holistic Health Week. So if you guys were here for that, you are going to love this. Anyone is welcome, though, whether you are an FDN trainee, graduate, or you're never considering the FDN course, you just like hanging out with us. It is our first ever clinical week. So we had so much fun on the Holistic Health Week that we said, how can we do this again, but not be super repetitive? We want to bring something new to the table. So in the second week of May, we are doing our first ever clinical week. So it's the way that you can picture it is kind of a nerdier Holistic Health Week. And if you were on Holistic Health Week, we got pretty nerdy there. So it's going to be a great time. The team has decided that maybe the reason Ev got sick is because we were doing 7 live sessions back to back in a day for 5 days straight. So we have adjusted the schedule a little bit, and we will be doing 4 live sessions each day with 1 hour break in between 2 and 2. So how this will work is at 11 o'clock Eastern, we will start, do 2 sessions, take an hour break, and then do 2 more. I can do that, and it's probably a lot easier for you guys to be able to consume that as well. So if you are on live with us right now or watching the video afterwards, you already have the link right there. It's fdntraining.com/CSW. If you're listening to this on the audio side, we'd love for you to join us as well. So that's fdntraining.com/CSW. And I'm really looking forward to this. If we're doing this in a way that's actually sustainable, then these weeks are super fun. And it's really fun to get 500-600 people on live with us to nerd out over clinical stuff. So let's get into our guest today. Renee is a pharmacist turned holistic practitioner on a mission to help busy women live their healthiest, happiest lives possible. She walked away from a 26-year career because she was burning the candle at both ends, taking care of everyone except herself, and it took a toll on her mental and physical health. She uses her experience now and training in functional lab testing to reveal the healing opportunities in the body and support clients with lifestyle and nutrition coaching to reach their health goals. Renee was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She is married to her high school sweetheart. That's awesome. They have 1 miracle son and have lived in Colorado for over 24 years now. She loves walks outside and hiking, socializing with friends, and football. Renee, welcome to the podcast. Like we said, it's a full circle podcast, so I'm really glad to have you here.
Yes, thank you, Evan. It's so nice to be here with you. It is. This is a moment. This is great.
Well, what I love about your story already, because just so you guys know, Renee and I, just because you work at the same company, especially when it's virtual, this is a very siloed organization sometimes, right? Not through FDN's fault. This is just something that happens in virtual communities. We do have company meetings. We all get to see each other. Renee and I message back and forth for certain things. It's mostly the trainees asking for copies of the book or something like that. But outside of that, we don't get to talk that much. So I don't know much of her story, but the first thing I already love here is that you were in a 26-year career. Because Renee, I know with your position in the company, you probably see and hear this all the time. So many people think, oh, wait, I'm not 21. Can I do FDN? And I'm like, face meet palm, right? Because the majority of people that do FDN have already had careers, have kids. They might have kids that are out of the house already. They usually are not picking this as something that they would do after high school or after college. It's usually much later into our life that we realize we want to do this stuff. So what I would love to dive into first, and then we'll talk about obviously what you do here at FDN and how this all came together. But what did your first health symptoms look like, and when exactly did they begin for you?
So my first health symptoms were like complete stress, like completely stressed out. And that's while I was still working as a pharmacist. I was also a pharmacy manager, so I had lots going on. And I realized I always really enjoyed what I was doing for like 24 of those years. I actually was a person who enjoyed getting up and going to work every day, which is great. That's how it should be, right? That's how we should be living our lives. And when that started changing, and then when I started realizing on Sundays, I was dreading that I had to go to work the next day on Monday, I was like, wow, something needs to change. But it was really hard because I went to school a long time. I worked hard to get my pharmacy degree and to build a successful career. And the back of my head, I kept saying, you're just going to walk away. You're just going to throw it away. What's wrong with you? And so I kept trying and trying to find something to be excited about work again, but was not successful at that. So the reason I go into that is because for 2 years, I knew like I was stressed out. I would come home exhausted. I would come home and like not feel like spending time with my family. I was irritable and impatient. And so unknowingly, that was taking a toll on my health. And so fast forward, I decided to resign and walk away. And the final push for me was at the time our son was 14. And I thought, wow, look at the example you're setting for him. You're showing him that you're working hard, you're busting your butt, and yeah, you're making a whole lot of money, but you're absolutely not happy. So that was it. That was it. So I resigned. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was a year later that I started working with a naturopath because I did start having symptoms. Like, it's like after your body realizes, oh, okay, we don't have to stay in this stressed out fight or flight mode anymore. So we're going to show her everything that's wrong now. And there was a lot wrong. I was exhausted, and my cortisol results showed that when I did my FDN tests as a trainee. I would get up in the morning and my joints and my feet would hurt, and I'm only in like my mid 40s, and I'm thinking that this is not okay. You're too young for this. And then other random stuff, like my hair was getting thin. I was having skin issues. I was not sleeping well at all. And that's, like, we know as FDNs, that's huge, super huge. So like everything was just kind of unraveling. And it was always interesting to me that it took about a year after I resigned and got out of that it, like, my body showed me, or maybe I was just able to listen to it. Like, hey, all this stuff's wrong. You need to address me.
One of the things I want to go to first is, and you would already know this because you listen to the podcast, but others that are might maybe tuning in for the first time wouldn't know this. I think it's so cool that you were thinking from the perspective of what example am I setting for my kid here? Because, and this is going to be something I don't make friends with necessarily. I do believe long term, not necessarily in the short term, but long term, if you are in a career in a Western society that you don't love, which you did love at one point, right? But it was hurting you long term. So you addressed it fast. But so many people sign up for a 40 or 50-year plan that they do not like. And I don't think that's a fault, right? Because again, you might have to do some things short term that you don't like. I have worked for Uber, I have worked for Amazon, I've worked at my parents' restaurant. That was all before I started doing stuff that I was passionate about. So I totally get that. But if you are in something that you don't like and you don't even have a plan as to how to get out of this and you just accept that for your life, I am sorry, but I largely think that that is mostly on us. And even if the plan was going to take you 10 years, well, fine. That's 10 years out of the 40 or 50, probably even more now, that most of us are going to have to work in today's world. At least you have some type of idea as to how you're going to get out of this. But I cannot comprehend the people that sign up for this stuff at 25, 26 years old. They know that they don't like it. And they're just like, oh, okay, well, if I do this till 65, that's all right. I don't think that's all right. I think it's a huge contribution to health issues. And I commend you a lot for saying to yourself, for a variety of reasons, but that being one of them, that this is a terrible example to set for a 14-year-old that, yeah, you're basically just supposed to not like your life Monday through Friday for the rest of your adult life. Like, of course, these kids walk around thinking that college is the best years of their life. I don't think that should be the case at all. That hasn't been my experience. I'm sure that hasn't been yours at this point. But for a lot of people, I think that is their reality, that their college years end up being their best time. That can't be the case just from a mental health perspective. It certainly can't be the case from a health perspective as well. If 40 plus hours a week we're doing something we don't like, that is a chronic stressor. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so another part of your story here, because we jumped a little bit, so I want to figure out how the heck you end up with a naturopathic physician, because that is usually, at least, not the natural progression for people. So we end up not feeling so great at work. We realize that that's a huge contributing factor. And then all of a sudden, I'm at a naturopath. So what happened before that? Because unless you have some type of influence in your life for holistic health, I'd have to imagine that it was not your first step to go to a naturopathic doctor. So did anything precede that?
Yes, definitely. So when I was still working as a pharmacist, I also felt like a hypocrite because I thought there is no way am taking this stuff. This stuff is not good for you. Like I knew, like we would counsel patients on, watch out for these side effects and like, yeah. So I was like, I don't want any part of this. I want to take care of myself so that I don't need any of these medications for chronic diseases that are in our control. So I already was taking care of myself. I had interest in holistic health and was trying to take care of myself in that way. Interestingly, my mother-in-law was very much into holistic health as well, and was getting herself taken care of in that way. She's in Louisiana. And so she would tell me things and I'd be like, oh, that's so interesting. And then I go look it up. So I had an interest in it. And when I knew that I was leaving my career, I wanted to do something with holistic health, but I had no idea what that could be.
Okay.
I resigned, and 2 weeks after that, I started taking some classes at my local community college. They have a whole integrative health program. And so I thought, well, that would be kind of cool. I could take some classes and just see what's out there. And it was very helpful. It really broadened my perspective or my horizon about what all is out there in the holistic world, because many things I didn't know about at all. And I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel like enough for me. Like there just wasn't enough there for me to be like, oh, okay, let me go out and help people now.
Mm-hmm.
And I found FDN on the internet, and immediately I knew this is what I needed, a course that I needed to take, a certification I needed to get, because of the functional lab testing, I as a pharmacist, I love data. And to have this real data about an individual's body telling us, like it is telling us exactly what it needs. I thought, that's it. That's the missing piece. That's what I need. So
Awesome.
I signed up. I actually signed up on Christmas Day,
Okay.
2023.
It's so funny because that's like something that our team would actually talk about. So I probably didn't remember the name, but I would remember, like, if someone signs up on Christmas, that's a big deal. Is that the 12 days of Christmas thing? Because we probably had the special at that time or something like that. I'm wondering. We
I
must
don't
have sent
remember.
something out for
I
Christmas.
already knew. So I knew about FDN. I learned about it. It was like October.
Okay.
And so I was like getting my money lined up to pay for it.
Okay.
I missed out on the Black Friday November sale, which I was really bummed about. I was like, no, I want to pay for this. I don't want to start something that I don't have the money to pay for yet. And so it happened in December, and December 25th, I signed up.
Gotcha. All right. I want to go back for another second, just because I thought something you said was really interesting regarding you're a pharmacist at the time and you're starting to understand that, hey, I don't think I would do some of this stuff. So I'm just curious, is that a belief that more pharmacists share than I realize, or did you feel kind of isolated with that belief? Because I mean, you're obviously working with other pharmacists, from my understanding, generally speaking. So,
Mhm.
do other pharmacists realize how bad some of this stuff is, or were you kind of isolated with those beliefs?
I wouldn't say I was isolated. There definitely were colleagues that I worked with that were very much into taking care of themselves,
Hmm.
making sure they got movement, having good nutrition, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they deep down felt as much as I did, like if something were to go wrong, would they go that route that
Hmm.
Western medicine would have them go? I don't know if they would. I feel like they would have still done that, but I would have like sought other options first. Absolutely. So I was a
Okay.
little bit different, but it wasn't. mm, yeah, I was a little bit different, but not a total unicorn.
No, I gotcha. Because I just, to this day, I still continue to be shocked by some of the perspectives of people in Western medicine. Because I think oftentimes, not by FDN, but the functional medicine space or natural medicine space as a whole sometimes has this underlying narrative that like everyone in there is brainwashed and doesn't realize what's going on. And I don't think that's the case. But I
Mhm.
also, at the same time, am still shocked by how ridiculous some of the stuff that happens is. So I'm going to be very vague with this because I don't want to put this person out there. They wouldn't mind me sharing the story, but I don't want to mention who it is. So I will say that when I was home for a week for Easter, I mentioned that to you off air. I saw someone that is in the Western medicine profession, right? And they do a great job there and they're helping people all the time. Now, this is a person that I know that has very high anxiety and is prescribed, Xanax on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So they had some issue with their back. They went to the ER for it and were prescribed Valium. Now, I'm not arguing the prescriptions. That's not even what I'm saying. But I made a comment because we're very close. So they felt comfortable sharing this with me. Obviously, this is how I know. And I said, wait, they give you Valium when you have a prescription for Xanax already? And they're like, oh, well, they don't know. I'm so ignorant. I'm thinking, there's not a system somewhere that checks if you're being prescribed multiple benzodiazepines. And they're like, no, like maybe insurance would realize that you're going to multiple places, but they're like, if you went to doctors and just paid out of pocket, you'd probably never know that you're getting multiple prescriptions for this stuff. So one, I just want to make sure, because they're a different part of Western medicine than you, is what I just said actually correct? And then I'll deal with the second part of that if that's true. But is that actually correct that in theory, if I'm just paying out of pocket, no one would even know that I'm going to these different doctors and getting the same prescription?
Possibly, yes, especially if they were in a different state.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I won't go off too long on my second part here, but I just got to say, like, that is incomprehensible to me. And I get that part of it's privacy, right? And I'm someone, I mean, if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you know what my beliefs are with certain things. Like, I am an advocate for privacy. I don't want, the government involved in too much of my life when it doesn't have to be. I think it serves a lot of great purposes. I'm not, over on the other far side, but that to me that seems flawed. That seems wrong that someone could just be going into a bunch of different places. It seems dangerous to them, right? We're supposed to be helping people
Mhm.
ideally. And if I could be doing that and getting a bunch of different prescriptions, at best, I'm hurting myself. At worst, I'm distributing those drugs and supporting helping other or hurting other people. So I 11 years into this am still amazed by some of the things that continue to happen on a regular basis. So, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
New next
There is
podcast,
a,
right?
there is a place. There is a place for Western medicine.
Of course.
Absolutely. But there's also so much that, wow, if we could focus on prevention and the things that we know from FDN that we can do to take care of ourselves, what a wonderful world it would be.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, I mean, I won't get too deep into this, I guess, but if it is someone's first time listening, no, there's plenty of flaws in functional medicine. There are so many people out there on Instagram, influencers, that are sharing things that if you actually know science and know how to do even a basic amount of research, you realize that what they just said is more or less folklore and has no scientific basis whatsoever. So our space has problems too. It's just more the average consumer, God bless them, that's just trying to get healthy is trusting this system, is trusting our system sometimes, and they are both still very flawed. And I'm just glad that there's progress being made. But unless you're really inside these things, you sometimes don't know just how crazy it gets. So there is hope, though. And hopefully, some of those things that provide hope are things like FDN. So you found us online. You ended up deciding it's the right program for you. And when you went through this, I mean, you had already went to your naturopathic physician. So if I can ask, how much better were you feeling by the time you found FDN? Were you already like feeling overall 100% better, or did you still have some work to do on your health?
I still had some work to do. So I would say I was probably feeling about 60% better.
Okay.
So the biggest thing I remember is she helped me understand more about inflammation in the body. So I no longer had the joint and the foot pain, aches and pains when I would get out of bed in the morning.
Mhm.
So all that went away. My sleep got better. It got much better after FDN, but it improved. So the other things I was experiencing improved, but I still had some work to do, and I was literally shocked when I did get to do my lab kits as a trainee, and I got the results back. I actually almost cried because I thought that I was so much healthier, and I was, but I still had like lots of work to do. And so I just had to take a couple minutes and, have a little pity party. And then I was like, all right, you got the information. Let's keep moving forward.
Can we talk about, if you remember, like what were some of the biggest findings that maybe were shocking to you? Because for those that don't know, we actually include the lab tests that we recommend in our FDN foundational labs as part of the program. And nowadays, what's cool, this is different than even when you went through, we include all of the labs. So there was one missing when you went through, there was like 4 missing when I went through back in the day, 8 years ago. Now you get all of them. You're going to run them while you're in the course, and you actually get to look over the results through multiple sessions with your mentor here at FDN. You'll actually have a couple of mentors if you want. So when you went over those, what were some of maybe like the specific findings that were particularly of interest to you?
Yeah. So on my stress and hormone panel, I was really sad that I was in exhaustive phase. So now it was almost 4 years after leaving my career. And I thought, wow, my cortisol is still in the tank. Like it's still. That made me really sad. My mucosal barrier assessment, I had leaky gut, so everything was all messed up. My GI map, I had a parasite, I had H. pylori. I had given up gluten already, like when I started working with the naturopath. So probably 2 years, but I wasn't in a completely gluten-free home. And so my anti-gliadin was off the chart. Like it was that greater than 500. thing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I don't even eat it. I'm not even eating gluten. And look at this. So it was stuff like that that was like, wow, what have I been doing these last several years?
Yeah, and it is bittersweet, especially if someone was doing as much work as you did before coming in. And I know that you kind of jokingly said, although it was probably true at the time, you're kind of having a pity party. But the flip side of this is why these labs, because people always say, like, how did you come up to Reed Davis, the founder, like, how did you come up with these foundational labs? And the reality is they're so sensitive for certain things. They can even be preventative, that if you actually run these, you're going to find things long before problems manifest, like consciously, right? You could find things before symptoms manifest. And certainly if you're already dealing with symptoms, this is how you're going to find the downstream stuff. So I think about this, and I'm looking at you and your career path and what you were able to do. You can't go into what you did for work and be a dumb person. So I have an intelligent person in front of me that clearly is willing to work hard and study hard, was on this path for 4 years, and still there were things that needed to be addressed and kind of fixed. And this is why I believe these messages need to be shared as often as we can, and why we do 3 podcasts a week on average, and why I encourage everyone to share their story, because there are people out there that, let's be honest, maybe they're not as smart as you and they're not nearly as hardworking and diligent with the research. How the heck do they stand a chance in this modern world where we got the water poison, the food's poison? I know we're making some progress, but guys, it's going to take a lot more than some government mandates to fix these issues. This is people voting with their dollars, and we needed them to vote with their dollars yesterday. The only way that you get someone to vote with their dollars is by informing them and freeing them from ignorance, because you're never going to spend $4 more for the organic peanut butter unless you understand what you're actually investing in. And you might even be at the next level where you're not eating peanut butter sometimes because you got candida or something like that, right? Um, when you were able to flip this around, you get out of the pity party and you start to realize, okay, there's a lot that I can do. Was there a moment where it became more of a positive thing and you said, okay, like, thank God I'm finding this at least, and hey, I'm ready to tackle this?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I literally, I really did spend like a minute or two, a little teary and like, oh my gosh, poor me.
Mhm.
And then I thought, all right, this is information. Information is powerful. Knowledge is powerful. And I had, I got my results very shortly before my results session with my mentor.
Mhm.
And so it was, maybe 30 minutes after that we start going through them. And I thought, okay, this is going to be okay. I can do this.
Yeah. Especially with the gluten, what new changes were necessary to kind of address these lab results? Because I'm like, oh my gosh, if you weren't in a gluten-free household, that's already one thing. Whitney Morgan's like, beating us with a wooden spoon somewhere out there. That's one of our critical advisors, for those that don't know. And she is very strict with that, and for good reason. She has
Yes,
data to back that up. So how did that affect your life? Because now you're probably asking other people to change things too, I would have to imagine.
I did. Yes. So my husband was mostly gluten-free at the time as well. Our son was not. And so I told him, like, I can't have this stuff in the house. We have to like change our cutting boards and our, cause we had wooden cutting boards. We had the wooden spoons that you cook with, and they had touched gluten. And this, like those particles, like they stick, those little bitty particles stick in everything. We were storing food in plastic that gluten had been stored in prior. So all these things that you don't know about until you really dive into this stuff and you get exposed to someone who's an expert like Whitney, and you learn, like, you have to replace all those things and not have gluten in this kitchen again.
Mhm.
And so that's what we do. Our son still likes, hamburger bun for his burgers and that kind of thing. And I'm like super strict about, all right, if you get that out, it's like right here. It's only on this part of the kitchen, and you're going to clean it really good. And you're not going to use the towel that we use to dry our hands.
And it's funny because if like someone's listening and doesn't fully get this yet, which I got to be honest, I think a lot of people in the holistic space do not fully understand this. They might be gluten free as far as they're concerned, but they don't understand how far this goes. Like you need to be careful. I was talking to Maddie recently, and I realized unintentionally, probably since we met, not that she eats gluten, she was willing to adopt that very early on, and I appreciated it, but I've gotten slightly lazy with certain things, and where I would have never eaten out before, honestly, which it sounds miserable, but it's like there's certain restaurants you could eat at. So I'm
Mhm.
eating out at restaurants that are like pretty gluten free, and I'm thinking, well, Ev, you know better. So I'm going to run my first wheat zoomer here soon, just because if I see that data, that's what's going to help me, and I will be able to change because of that data. I am a sucker for the labs, where if I see something that is bad, I'll change everything. But I think I need to do that because for people like us that have these sensitivities, if you're mostly gluten free or you think you're gluten free, that little chronic inflammation over time, or the days that you're having a headache, or the days that, hey, I just don't feel as good as, I probably should, you don't even realize what's happening, but it could be from something like that. I'm not suggesting that it's only from something like that, but it very well could be, especially if your anti-gliadin was that high. That's crazy high for someone who's supposedly gluten
Mhm.
free.
I know. I know. Yeah. And I always like to tell people too, I still get people saying, oh my gosh, you don't eat gluten. How do you do that? How can you possibly? When you get it out of your life and your body feels so much better and you feel so much better, like not just physically, but mentally, it's really easy to not have gluten. It's
Mhm.
really, really easy. Like it is not hard at all.
I agree. Yeah. I know that we want to focus a lot on the career part today too, and I promise I'm going to get to that. I just had to ask a couple more questions about the FDN side. So one other thing that I wanted to ask is, outside of just adopting this more strict gluten-free household, which I totally think was relevant, and I support that fully. You have to do that. What were some of the other things that you needed to address? Because again, you probably had made some major shifts in that 4-year period prior to going through FDN, but you get these lab results back, you're realizing, wow, there's still work to be done. So what were some of the other like really big wins for you? Let's say the gluten was definitely one of them. Any other big wins that really moved the needle for you health-wise?
Yeah, I'll say two things jump out at me. So I was still trying to exercise like intensely, which you cannot do when you're in an exhaustive phase, that you're just hurting your body more. And so I learned like movement's still important, but movement needs to be different. Instead of intense, it needs to be, some nice walks outside in the fresh air and sunlight, not beating your body up, gentle yoga, like those. So I switched my exercise routine to those things.
Mhm.
And I just added, like I was doing body weight exercises, but got to a point where I could like do strength training, like add weights back in last fall. So yeah, so I had to change my exercise routine to fit like what my body could handle,
Mhm.
and would be useful. And then sleep was the other thing. So I still was that person that would turn the TV on when in the bedroom and watch TV right before going to sleep at night. Yeah,
Oh,
like working with the naturopath, like that's not something we really covered back then. And so sleep was not a priority. And then I would do like all these wrong things. So I changed my sleep routine. I have a wind down routine. I have a bedtime when I go to bed and when I wake up that's relatively the same, whether it's a weeknight, the weekend, a holiday, being consistent. And that's made a huge, huge difference.
awesome. I love that you mentioned the TV part, because I think FDNs are better at this, but like that's a hard habit for a lot of people to break. I remember when I was a kid, it was something I was arguing for. Like I'm like, mom and dad, let me have a TV in the room, because all my other friends have one, and it is insane the data that's coming out around that. So guys, this isn't TV lights. We're talking and please look this up as people won't believe this. So just street lights that are kind of coming around your curtains, because no one obviously has an open window without curtains at night, right? No one could sleep like that. But, people will put their curtains up and then they kind of let some street lights come through and they don't think twice about it. We already know that mild amounts of light like that, 50% increase in breast cancer in women, 50% increase in prostate cancer in men. Oh, and I think it's like don't quote me on the depression one, 27 to 30 something percent increase in depression in everyone. That's just what we've tested for so far. So I would have to imagine, I mean, Renee, we're, smart enough people as FDNs, right? If it increases breast and prostate cancer, I'll take a wild guess it's not just limited to those two cancers. And we just tested them because they're some of the most common in women and men, respectively. I'm going to guess it's not just limited to depression in the mental health side. So what's happening to people who have their TV on, like you said, throughout the time that they're falling asleep and all night, if street lights coming around a curtain can do that? So please sleep in the dark. That alone can probably help this exhaustive phase thing for half the people listening to it. Our bodies are not made for that. So I want to transition a little bit here because, again, it always goes fast and we got about 15 minutes left in the show. One of the things that I think is so impressive, because my story at 18, like I got into the career side while also figuring out my health. It's like common sense for me that I'm going to do what I love and get into a career that is fulfilling regardless of whether or not it paid well in the beginning. For others, this is tough. People get into these big jobs. They went to school and dedicated, 6-7 years of their life to this. Sometimes they have student loans, maybe. They have kids and families they have to support. It is not, I recognize that it is not an easy decision to be in a full out adult and say, I'm just going to take the leap here and get out of this career. So you're on kind of the other side of this now. You have your own business, which we'll shout out at the end. You work for FDN. You weren't probably making nothing as a pharmacist. I'm sure you were doing quite well. So what was that like to make that decision? I know we're almost going back in the story, but I do want to focus on the emotional side of this. What the heck was that like when you finally took that plunge? Because I'm assuming it was scary.
Oh yeah, it was very scary. And that's what kept me trying to figure it out for a while, because I was like, I like this lifestyle we have. I don't know that I want to give it up. And my husband was extremely supportive and telling me, we'll figure it out. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. You need to take care of yourself. And we want you coming home happy again. And so we made some changes. I mean, I'm not, I was making like a very nice fat 6-figure salary. And so we had to make changes. So we stopped the going out to eat budget, like pretty much went to zero, which is fine. That's better for us anyway. We cut our satellite TV so that we just had, what regular TV that comes on when you just plug in your TV. So we cut some nice to haves, like not things that you have to have to live a great life. We just cut those like nice to haves. And it was fine. It wasn't that hard. People think that's hard as well, and it wasn't. So yeah, there definitely was a change, but it was so worth it. And it was, it makes me think, like when I did decide, okay, I'm going to resign, I told a couple of my colleagues that I was closer to, and it really, really surprised me that they all were just as miserable, but they're like, I can't do it. There's no way. I can't leave all this money behind and these great benefits. And I was like, wow, that's really sad.
Yeah. I think sometimes we have to accept that we got to give up who we are to become who we can become. And it's probably a little bit easier, let's be honest, in hindsight, to say this all worked out because you got your health back and all that kind of stuff. I do get it when people are stuck in it, but I also just think, man, if you talk to any billionaire who has lost their health, billionaire, all of a sudden the money doesn't matter anymore, right? And the one wish that they would have is to either be younger or healthier or whatever that they could possibly do. And I know it's easier said than done, but man, it's amazing how we kind of like sell. I mean this metaphorically speaking. I'm not getting spiritual on you guys, but you almost like metaphorically sell your soul, and you sell your life to just make a little bit extra. But at what expense, right? So I have huge props for you. And I love your husband already. I haven't met him, right? But I just love the fact that he was supportive with this, because that could be another huge problem, right? If you guys
Oh
have
yeah.
both been used to this for 20 something years, that's a decision with both parties that we're going to change that. And it takes two to tango. So I just love that he was supportive in this idea of like, we got to focus on this health first, because guess what? Eventually that's all you're going to be able to focus on, even if that's not the case in the moment. So it's kind of an illusion anyway, right? I hope that this, and I know that you wouldn't hope for this either, but obviously we hope that this doesn't happen to your coworkers. But the reality is, it's like, so you're just delaying the inevitable. A lot of people are going to get sick in today's world, statistically speaking. So you either address it now while you're still ahead, or you wait till it kind of forces you to. And that second option is way harder. Although human beings, we're not so good at this stuff until the second option happens, right? How how did you decide then that you were going to work for FDN, start your own business? Because I shouldn't even say the work for FDN side, although that probably is relevant. What I'm getting at is a pharmacist shows up every day and you're at an in-person job. FDN already kind of weird for people because you're working online completely. And then starting your own business is a new type of thing if you've always worked as an employee. And then you're also doing it online. So was it hard to kind of shift your mindset around these new ways of working and earning income? Not even just the money side, but I'm saying like the way that you actually show up to work, because that's completely different than showing up in person.
It is completely different. Yes. So when I was still working in the pharmacy world, we would hear people talking about working remotely and would be like, gosh, how could I ever do that? Because you can't. Um, and so I thought, wow, that would be kind of cool. And so when I did get the opportunity, I was like, oh wow, I never thought I would be able to work from home or work remotely. And here I am. That's what I'm doing for FDN and for my business. So it's really kind of cool. And it's interesting. So I don't know if you know this story, but I was still a trainee when FDN sent an email out to all the trainees saying, hey, we have this opening. And if you're you qualify because we want you a certain way through the course,
Mhm.
if you're interested to come and work for us. And I was, at the time, I was working part-time at this nutrition clinic, and it was fun. Like it felt good to be in the holistic world. And I liked it. It was easy. It was fun. I got to talk to people all day. But her practice was growing and growing and growing, and she needed a bigger office. So she moved. And
Okay.
so my less than 10-minute commute became a 40-minute commute one way. And I was like, this is terrible. And then I got that email saying that FDN was looking for someone, a course administrator. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to apply. We'll see what happens. And here we are.
That's awesome. And yeah, that 40-minute commute became about a 4-second commute now. It's a pretty, there's pros and cons to everything. I'm obviously an extremely extroverted person, so I actually have to balance it, because talking, I don't know what that is. I'd love to do a brain scan of this. I really would. Just the nerd in me would. There is something different talking to you right now than talking to you in person, right? It does not do the same thing for me as in person. But man, that privilege of being able to be like, yeah, my bed's over there, and then the podcast studio is right here. That's pretty cool. So, what does a day in the life for you as someone who works for FDN? What does that role look like? Because you're someone that a lot of the trainees, from my understanding, will actually probably end up interacting with in some way or another. So, what does a
Mhm.
day in the life look like for you?
Yeah. So every day. So what's very interesting is every day looks different, and I don't always know. Like I might have a plan of, this is what I need to accomplish today. This is the project I need to work on today. But something might change that. So it's kind of cool to be challenged, or to need to pivot to be able to support trainees in the course. So mostly I start the day off like answering messages within the company and from trainees, helping to troubleshoot sometimes when something isn't going right for them. And then it evolves into working on projects. So we're always trying to update and improve the course. We're adding some really cool things to the course this year, and so there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen and to work out all the logistics. So it's just, I think that's part of what I like about the company we work for, is it's not the same every day. It's different, and it's fun, and the people that we work with are great. Yeah, it's just exciting. Keeps me on my toes.
Gotcha. For those that don't know, if we have, it's not all salaried employees, but there's a lot of independent contractors. I think there's like 40 or 50 total people that work for FDN between those two categories of employment. And you're talking 40 plus. If there's 50, 40 plus are FDNs, which is nuts. So you all share this same passion, and you have people from every walk of life, different religious backgrounds, spiritual background, whatever it might be, political backgrounds. It doesn't matter here. And I think that is such a privilege and breath of fresh air in today's world, where it's like everyone's crazy, right? Everyone, all of us, including me. And just to be able to come to a place where we don't give a crap about any of that. We're all coming together for the same thing. We all get it. We know what it's like to struggle with our health and then come out on the other side, and to want to work towards a mission. That is completely different than working solely for a paycheck. Paychecks are necessary. You got to buy stuff, but there is nothing like working for something that you're actually excited about every single day. That is something I hope everyone gets to experience at least once. I also got to put this comment here from Russ. So it's not a question, it's just a nice comment. So thank you, Russ. He said, Renee has been wonderful during my onboarding. She's a great asset to FDN. Thanks for sharing her testimony. So thank you, Russ. You're awesome. I think remind me, I think he just got restarted during Holistic Health Week time, right? And he was actually a trainee a while ago.
Yes.
That's awesome. Welcome back, Russ. All right. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you now is, you do have your own practice where people could work with you in theory if they'd like to. So who do you like to focus on in your practice? Is there a specific kind of like a niche that you prefer to focus on, or is it anyone and everyone?
I prefer women in their 40s and 50s, mostly because that's what I'm most familiar with. And so it's really easy to understand where they're at and what they're dealing with. It's really easy for me to be compassionate and empathetic with them. So I mostly focus on women, perimenopausal and menopausal. And I really love when I get a client that is like, I've been going to my doctor. He or she says everything looks normal. My labs are normal. And then I really love it when they tack on. And then she said, this is just part of aging. And I'm like, no, and good for you for continuing to look and fight for, there's got to be something better, because you know your body is telling you that something is wrong. It's not normal. And so I'm really passionate about, like, women, not just women, but everyone. Like, be your own advocate, take control of your health, because if things don't feel right to you, but a practitioner is telling you, well, your labs look normal, keep looking, because your body is telling you the right thing. So I get really passionate about that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's a huge thing that I'm always advocating for as well. It's like, we're not advocating for arguing Western medicine. We're advocating for common sense. If I know something is wrong, because I know my body better than anyone, there's no lab test that knows my body better than me in terms of how I feel, and someone is saying the labs don't show anything, that's not a wrong answer in and of itself. The wrong answer is the labs aren't showing anything. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with you. No. Two things can be true at once. The labs that you're using cannot show anything, while simultaneously I cannot feel well. So we must have to do it deeper investigative work. And that's what a benefit to working with someone like Renee could be, is that we have experienced this ourselves, so we don't take no for an answer. I mean, honestly, you would never have the foundational labs of FDN not show something. I have been here for 8 years. Well, been doing FDN for 8 years, and I've never once had that be the case. But gosh forbid, someone came to us feeling like crap, and somehow it was the first time ever in FDN history that the foundational labs didn't show anything. We would not dismiss the person and gaslight them. We would say, okay, we must be missing something. So let's go to more tools in our tool belt and figure out why you don't feel this way. Like, what a concept, right? So I
Exactly.
wish more people thought that way. How are you feeling nowadays? We never expect someone to get on the show and be in perfect health. I'm working on some stuff myself right now, which I'm going to be sharing pretty soon. But I want to know for you, like, you at least you look healthy, you sound healthy, but there can always be more going on. So where are you at now that you went through FTN?
Yeah. So I would say I'm probably 85, 90%. I feel like I'm still on my healing journey. I still have some things to work on, but yeah, I feel like better than I felt in probably 10, 15 years. Lots of energy, not exhausted anymore. Sleep really well. Yeah.
Yes. And where can people find you if they would like to work with you or learn more about what you specifically do?
My website, wellnessrxintegrativehealth.com. So yeah, I have a little contact me at the bottom. I'm on social media as well, Facebook. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, but mostly Facebook.
Okay. And we'll have all those links in the show notes for you guys. And I mean, shameless plug here, but it is kind of cool when you get to work with someone in the FDN staff because I'll be honest, we got the in. You know what I mean? Like, you're never just working with Renee, really. It's more like Renee and every single person that she has access to if something came up that's a little bit out of our wheelhouse. So I will say, shameless plug, it's a nice benefit to have. So you have listened to the podcast before. If you've ever made it through a full 50 minutes of me, then you know the signature question on the show. And the signature question is, if we could give you a magic wand, you could wave it and you could get every single person that is listening to this to do one thing for their health. So that means you could get us to all start doing one thing, or you can get us to all stop doing one thing. What is the one thing that you get us to do?
I would say prioritizing self-care. So that's something that I didn't do for myself for 26 years. So I would take care of everyone else, put everyone else first, make sure everyone else was taken care of. And then if there was anything left, I would focus on myself, which most of the time there wasn't anything left, right? I was too tired. So put yourself first. Get your walk in, take care of yourself, spend some time planning out your food, like do all those things that take a little bit more time, that invests in yourself, in your health, in your wellness, because it pays off tenfold. You actually will have more time than you thought you did.
Awesome. Renee, thank you so much for coming on. I love when people not only get to meet our FDNs, but get to meet people that are actually inside making this all happen. And we have an awesome testimony here from Russ. So if you guys didn't know Renee was awesome, now you definitely do.